pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. All right, if we could have an approval of the minutes from the November 3rd meeting. I have a motion, a second. I have a second. Oh, you have a question, Mr. Jacobs? Yes, sir. Go ahead. It was the night meeting. Are you talking about the November 3rd meeting? Which one are you talking about? The November? Okay. Yes. You know, I agree with the new chairman of our commission. Sometimes these meetings do run together, but I feel your pain. But thank you, Mr. Jacobs, for pointing that out. We'll have that changed. Do we have our second? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And none opposed? All right, we go on. We have some recognitions coming up. We have two new board members. We talked about Miss Kathleen Shanahan, who's joining us from is it Eurotech? Did I pronounce that right? Okay. And she is the chairman and CEO. She has, without a doubt, a tremendous resume of different positions, both in politics and in government and in the private sector. She is greatly experienced and very welcome to this board. And we'd like to welcome you officially, finally, to the board, and hopefully your ankle will be better, or your leg will be better, so that you don't have to worry about the crutch anymore. So, but welcome aboard. Appreciate it. And we also have a new county commissioner joining us, Commissioner Stacy White. I'll read a little bit about Commissioner White, if you don't mind, sir. You were elected just this year. You serve on the committee now of 6, the Environmental Protection Commission, the MPO, the Tampa Bay Estuary Program Policy Board, and the Tampa Bay Partnership for Regional Economic Development, and now to the HART Board. Hopefully this is your first board as a county commissioner. I'm not sure if it is or it is not. It is. Hopefully it'll be this is going to start a great career for you on county commission. Commissioner White is a 5th-generation native of Hillsborough County. He had served on the Hillsborough County School Board, and he lives in Valrico with his wife and 3 children. He graduated from East Bay High School, and he earned a Doctor of Pharmacy degree from UF, and has practiced pharmacy for 18 years. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you very much for agreeing to serve on this board. We think it's an important board, and I hope you feel the same way after you've been here for a while. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, let's see here. And the following board members have been reappointed to the HART Board of Directors. Our council person from City of Temple Terrace, Mr. Eddie Vance, for another 1-year term. Congratulations for coming back. Commissioner Backner, who is not here, also is going to be on for another 1-year term. Mr. Wallace Bowers, he's going to be on for another 3-year term. Congratulations again. Thanks for being and serving here. Mr. Roche, another 1-year term for you. Commissioner Miller, who is not here, and of course Commissioner Merman, who is our chair of the County Commission. And I want to give you congratulations for being elected the chair of the County Commission. We hope that you enjoy chairing the commission as much as you've enjoyed serving the people of Hillsborough County. So congratulations. I have a couple of things that I want to read into the record before I go on. Commissioner Miller is going to be away from today's meeting. He is on a trade mission to Chile, which of course means that it is summer for him when he goes down there. So he will be enjoying the same kind of weather that we have here, I hope. So he won't be able to be at this meeting today. Next, we are going on to the recognitions of the HART 30-plus years of service. And I'm going to allow our distinguished CEO to take the helm on that one.
And thank you. We have several employees. Hello, gentlemen. I think all gentlemen today. No, Margaret Law, Margie Law is here too, I think. Ruthie Reyes would be making this presentation, but Ruthie is She's not able to join us this morning. So I'd like to start with Joel Thomas. Joel, if you don't mind standing up, this is how we do. You're first. Thank you very much. Joel has 30 years with us. 1984 as a bus operator. You've been an environmental specialist, and you again in transit supervision for 19 years. You've received several awards, and one thing I'm very proud of, Joel used our tuition reimbursement program not only to receive a bachelor's, but he holds a master's in public administration from USF. And I cannot tell you how many times I have tried to cajole, convince, and talk Joel into applying for a position behind a desk. And he steadfastly refuses. So, just a different perspective on our field supervisors, a lot of great experience and great education. So Joel, thank you very much. We have Ev. Ev, if you will stand up. I never get your full name correct. Everardo Prieto. You've also been here 30 years. 1984. You've been the inventory supervisor. You started in fleet, and now you're in inventory. So a quick education point, our inventory department is in a different structure than our fleet maintenance guys. So it's a great experience that Ev not only knows how to handle the parts and inventory, but you know what somebody's asking for when they come to the counter in the back area, all agitated, needing a particular thing that has a word this long, and it's really a little gadget. So it's a great combination of skills. You actually do accomplish a great deal for the community by keeping buses on the road. Thank you very much. You spend time with your wife, your 4 kids, and 2 granddaughters, and maintain your yard. So thank you. And Ev, I also try to talk into other positions, and apparently I don't have the right touch because he won't move either. Vince, hello Vince. Vince Colora also has 30 years working back with Ev in stores, a very experienced work group back there. You were referred over here and you stuck around. Thank you for coming, Vince. You started as a service attendant, also 1984, and you have been a parts driver, storekeeper, and you are the shipping and receiving agent. So Vince handles everything coming in and everything going out. His hobbies include photography, videography, traveling, writing, and personal fitness. So thank you, Vince, for your 30 years. And next we have Adrian Whidden, also in stores. I think you're seeing a theme. Adrian, can you stand up? Hi, Adrian. So we've got several of our 30-year folks are in the same department, so a great team working well together. He joined the authority as an inventory control assistant. It's our great benefits and job security, which interests you and kept you here. In your spare time, you and your wife canoe, hike, swim, and take your dogs to the park. I'd also like to point out that last year, working with our interim COO, we implemented a quarterly recognition program for the storekeepers and customer service. They were in a gray area, so we didn't have a program recognizing their great work, and Adrian was our inaugural employee of the quarter, so definitely something to be proud of. Thank you, Adrian. We have other employees who are not able to attend today. They are keeping the buses out there on the road. Unfortunately, that's duty calls. Ken Burke is a master mechanic with 31 years of the agency. Jose Aguero is a master paint and body technician, another 30 years. Richard Alvarez, a bus operator, 32 years. Oscar Fernandez, also in bus, 30 years. Antonio Mendez in bus with 30 years, and Margaret Law in customer service. Margie started off as a bus operator and went over to customer service on light duty and liked it so much she stayed there. So we are very proud of our folks with 30 years. We've enjoyed having them join us at the past 2 board meetings. Gentlemen, will you stand up again? All in the back row, I notice. Stand up. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, gentlemen, for serving 30 years here. I know that you've been through some tough times and some good times, and we appreciate that you're still here. And hopefully you'll continue to still be here as long as you want. We have one more of the recognition. We have a celebration of somebody who has been here for 5 years, Catherine Egan. We just wanted to recognize the fact that you've been here for 5 years. We congratulate you on not only persevering, but now becoming the CEO after we've had some tumultuous times in your 5 years. And I don't think we would be where we are at now as one of the best bus systems in the state, if not the country, without your leadership, and we appreciate that. So, you're welcome. Now, it was a surprise? Okay, well, that means that you don't look at my notes when they're up here hidden from your view. So thank you very much for your service, and let's make sure that we continue to serve well as you have been. All right, now this is our public input portion. There is no one that has signed up. Is there anyone as a member of the public that'd like to speak to us now on anything on the agenda? I see no one. Jeff Seward, please come on up. You're going to do a presentation about our government transparency initiative. Thank you, Jeff.
Good morning, Jeff Seward, Chief Financial Officer for HART. This morning, I am proud to review with you a project that we have had planned and we've worked on for the better part of a year. As many of you know, Florida statutes require, starting about 5 years ago, the requirement of all municipal and county budgets be posted on either the respective agencies' websites or a parental governmental website for transparency, for the availability of those documents to be accessible to the public. Many counties and cities, however, have gone above and beyond what that requirement stated. They have gone full-blown governmental transparency websites, allowing not only access to budget documentation, but all financial transaction data, from checkbooks to AR to AP, to solicitations to contracts. And something that we have wanted to do here for some time was to get all of our financial documentation out on the web in some type of transparent web portal and have that data accessible. A couple of things over the last year. Question exactly how we were going to do this. We are in the process of updating and actually re-engineering our entire HART external website that will provide much more fluency, much more ability for our patrons to be able to access information in a clear and precise manner. But we didn't want to wait for the full implementation of our website, which won't occur until the spring of 2015. We wanted to move forward as quickly as we could with the financial component. But first, we wanted to really gauge what other agencies are doing around the state of Florida. And as a benchmark, we looked at how the First Amendment Foundation of Florida assesses the transparency and the success of the transparency initiatives of these organizations. And what they found, the quote, "Websites created by Florida cities and counties to provide citizens with information frequently fail to provide fundamental facts about the costs and consequences of the decisions by the governmental agencies." Now, HART's website as it exists today, this morning, has the majority of all of these requirements embedded within it in some location. However, our financial documentation is limited only to our budgets and our annual financial reports. Overall, websites of Florida's 67 counties and 47 of its cities earned only about half of the possible credits on a transparency scorecard that was developed by the foundation. And some of the specific scoring is based on financial data, which includes budgets, expenditures by transaction and revenues, accountability, employees, who works for the agencies and what role, contracts, grants, lobbyists for the agencies, public meetings, the rights, the notices, the minutes of these meetings, contact information if there's an issue with the agency or the governmental entity. How do the citizens contact and resolve those? Public records. Is the process to access public records apparent and evident and easily understandable on the websites? Website functionality. The information may be there, but if it's hard to access or hard to understand how to navigate, it makes no use. And frequently sought information. And as an example for HART, that would be frequency of routes, contact information, passenger information, fare data, and so on. So our initiative. We have a goal for the full financial transparency component to be live by the end of calendar year 2014. So we are prepared to go live within the next week with the transparency component, which I'll walk through with you in just a second. Again, we are in the process of re-engineering our entire website, and the financial transparency piece will be woven into that re-engineering. But again, we are not going to wait for the full implementation of the new website. We're going to move forward with the website as it exists today. While the basic tenets of open government and transparency are being woven into the new website design simply by having better access to many of the documents that already exist on the website. While the primary website work will not be completed until the spring, again, we are moving forward with the effort. So I would like to walk you through what this will look like. When we go live, we'll have a transparent government, a commitment transparency outline of exactly what the purpose of this website is, or this portal, for the citizens to review. We have specific links. This will totally look different in the spring, but this is the way it will go live in the next week. Our transparency links, our finance, ethics will be able to have an understanding and a clarity of exactly where to go to file ethics complaints or questions. Environment, we have initiated a large-scale environmental sustainability program, as you're aware. We are going to ensure that the citizens have access to all of those documents and policies and procedures, public meetings, board policies, and sunshine law and public records requests. All of that, again, exists on the current website, but we put everything together into a transparency link. So on the finance side, we will have all of our financial policies, and these are actually all of the financial policies which this board adopted a year ago in the development of the 2013 budget. So each of the policies will be here. They'll be accessible to the citizens. We could jump out to expense guidelines. PDF of the policy is there, official. Go back. Budget documents. All the budget documents ranging all the way back to 1983 are accessible on the web. Our CAFRs, our annual financial reports, back to 1980. Our monthly financial reports, which go to the board. Now we're getting into the new documentation that is being posted. Currently, we have never posted our monthly financials out on the web. We will start now. Expenditures is new. We have accounts payable. I'll pull this up real quickly. Now, for the time being, these are going to be static documents. They will not be replaced monthly, but the next monthly financial statements and reviews will be posted. So eventually you have a complete chronology of all of our monthly transactional activity. So here we have the vendors' names. This is essentially who we're paying to do business with HART. We have the dollar amounts, the description of what we're buying, and the fiscal year in which it occurred. What will occur in the future is we'll get, and I'm going to take you to a website which, a transparency website which I helped develop about 5 years ago. And it's sortable. People will be able to go in and be able to highlight a specific vendor name or type of transaction and pull up and sort. For now, however, until the website is fully functional and we have some back-end software that we're working on, the reports will be static. Our payroll will be listed not by name but by employee and department. Our check dates, total payroll. Our wire and electronic transactions. We move quite a lot of money around between our SBOA account and our Bank of America account. These will be all taken into consideration and posted here. And again, this is new. This is nothing that we've posted in the past. And all of our purchase card transactions by the name of our employee that is making the transaction, the vendor in which we're paying, and the amount. Solicitation schedule for procurement. This allows our vendors and the public to see exactly what we have planned, what we have currently underway as far as our solicitations. Our TDPs will be out on the website as well. This is obviously the current TDP that we're under. And let me go. This is Sarasota County's transparency website, and as Chief Financial Planning Officer of Sarasota County, I helped work on this and get this up and running. And by the way, and of course, after I leave there, the foundation, First Amendment Foundation, rated Sarasota County's transparency website the best in the state after I leave. This is an example of the expenditures I had mentioned earlier, what we want to get to the point of achieving. And you can sort on the payee, on the fiscal year, on the business center, purchase type. You can sort on P cards. All the P card transactions will come up. So eventually we will get to this point. We're not there yet. We're very, very happy of where we are right now. And so committed to the transparency component that we are asking authorization by the board to be able to include this transparency process into our financial policies. And to do that, we need authorization to be able to move forward to modify the financial policies. Correct, General Counsel?
It's the Monday after Thanksgiving.
I'm just verifying.
Jeff, I think we have a question here from Commissioner Merman.
I actually don't have a question, but I think, Jeff, this is excellent and good work. And I'll certainly move to put this in our policy, make a motion to do that. I think you've been a great addition to HART. And I know that we're talking about being strapped for cash all the time, but a lot of people think it's so easy to do stuff because you have so many millions of dollars, but what they don't understand is where all that money goes. And you are providing that transparency so people understand that every dollar that comes to HART is being spent frugally and wisely. So I commend you on that, and I'll certainly make a motion to approve.
Okay. I'll go with Karen first. Karen?
Yeah, I would like to second Commissioner Merman's motion, and I really would like to jump in and commend Jeff as well. I know several months ago we made a decision to put the checkbook online, and at that time you mentioned that you had something in the works that was transparent, and you've just exceeded my expectations. I think probably too that I could probably speak for the board's expectations, and I think embedding this into our policies is the prudent way to go, and thank you for leading the way.
Okay. Mr. Jacobs?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeff, what's going to be the process once we go into the new website in 2015 in the spring? Is there going to be a transition of this information in there? Is it just inserted the way it is? I'm just curious as to the plans on how it's going to slide into the new format and what kind of work that's going to involve.
Oh, we're working on that right now. And since a lot of it is static, it's simply, I don't want to say simply because I'm not doing the work. In my mind, simply relinking the documents. It'll still have the transparency look and feel. And again, many of the documents outside of the financial components are already present on the HART website, and they'll be easily more accessible, more easily understood on how to get there. Through the website. So the transition, I think, will be transparent.
Ms. Shanahan.
I was at a conference a couple weeks ago for CEOs around the country, and one of the facts they told us is that the world's population is 7 billion people, and 6.8 billion get their information from social media. So transparency develops advocacy, and I think that this is great. We need to go better, faster, further, quicker, because it's the only way to sort of talk about the story and the services that HART provides, and also the challenges of what, in a growing, area, region, what are some of the new opportunities? So I view this as an educatory, I think it's, having worked in state government, where my first week I was asked for every email I'd sent anybody that I talked to, and I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, welcome to government in the sunshine. So this is great, and I'm glad to see it's going forward. I do own a residency in Sarasota, and their website is so easily you can move on it, and I'd say that is a great role model in terms of other websites around the state, and I'm encouraged the activity and hope we do more, faster, better.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Jeff, I will just say that that is unbelievable what you've put on there. We really appreciate it. It is something, I think Ms. Shanahan said it, that transparency creates advocacy. And, what I always tell people is that government is not about hiding what we do. It is about advocating what we do and about sharing what we do. And if we can't do that more often, then we're failing as good stewards of the tax dollars that we are given. So thanks so much for doing it, and I'm sorry that you left county government before they got the award, but there's no doubt that your fingerprints are all over what they did, and in addition, what you're doing here is terrific. One thing that I do have a question to the General Counsel, Ms. Shanahan just made a comment about transparency in terms of sunshine law. Can we, when people ask questions, just refer them to the website for specifics? There's a lot of specifics in there. Are we required then to have to put together information for them, or can we point to it if they're asking for that specific information?
That actually is more of a public records question, and to the extent you have a written document, you must produce it, but you're not required to create one. So referring them to the website would be sufficient.
Terrific. Well, that should help, break down staff time towards these type of requests. So you're saving us money at the same time of making us more transparent. So thank you, Jeff. I know you always want to do that. So
Always.
we have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor of that motion to go forward with this program? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Jeff. Great presentation.
I wanted to have a shout out real quick to the staff that actually helped put this together, the IT staff, the financial staff that were required to format and reformat the documents to get them on the web, and it was a team effort, so thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Okay, next we have a couple of action items, items 2A and B. If there are any questions about the memorandum of understanding that we're going to have between T-BARDA and us concerning our project for regional fare collection, you got any questions, Ms. Shanahan? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I've never sort of gone through contract review here, so I'm just curious, are there current costs that we have a current program, and so does this contract have any savings in it, or is there incentive to save in terms of any of these contract awards? And if so, does the contractor split it with how does it work in terms of your approach to contract management with sums of these figures? Is there shared savings at the end? Are the contract awardees incented to do better than the contract value? And if so, how does that happen? And what are the savings that this would bring back to HART under current operations? So those are two questions.
On A, this is essentially, it's an MOU and interlocal with TBARDA on a project which we're undertaking. It gives us an opportunity to spend less of other funding sources toward completing this, but I'll defer to Jeff for more information. And then the other contract information is, I don't know if you or Al want to take that.
I'll start with letter A.
A first.
I'll start with A. The agreement with T-BARDA, right now we are leading a working group effort with 8 agencies and counties in the T-BARTA region of working on a smart card fare system where all of us will have the same technology. All of us, our patrons will be able to move between jurisdictions. Right now, 100% of all of the funding that we have received to date has been from the state of Florida through non-matching grant programs. That funding in the amount of $1.9 million will be dispersed and managed through the region for the project. This agreement, T-BARTA has helped us in the past, meaning the working group. They have helped fund a consultant to assist with the development of an earlier solicitation. So we went back to T-BARTA, and they are a partner in this project, and asked if there was any way that they could contribute further funding, which does two things. One, it limits the amount of local dollars that will have to come out of the agencies, including HART. And two, it will leverage the state funding that we've already received. T-BARTA received, I believe, around $1.4 million for their One Call, One Click program from the federal government. And this money is from that One Call, One Click program. So what this will do is, one, it adds additional funding to the overall project, but it also leverages the funding that we already have to focus on equipment and software and the technology side, where we can leverage the use of their web portal for what we need and don't have to spend our local dollars on. So as far as a contract is concerned, this is just not just, but it's an agreement to spend T-BARTA's funding for the benefit of the Farebox project. That's A. B, we have as far as leveraging our contracts, I would say we have one of the most stewardship and forward-thinking contract management staffs that I have ever worked with in the public sector. We hold our contractors' feet to the fire to ensure that they not only adhere to the current contract, but they are giving us the best benefit for the dollar being spent. We monitor their activities, their spending. We don't have a bonus program in place to ensure that they complete the work early and receive any incentive for that. We don't do that. But we do hold their feet to the fire, and in the last 2 years, and I don't know what the exact count is, but we have had many vendors that we have gone toe-to-toe with and have actually severed ties with because they weren't producing what we had contractually asked them to produce. We are now going back. We have a couple of projects, as an example, where the work was subpar, and by a lack of project management, both historically on HART's behalf as well as the contractor's behalf, we are working with them to mitigate those issues at the least amount of cost possible to this agency. So I don't know if that actually answered your question, but we are have a very, very strong oversight of our contract management, and feel very strongly that once the contract comes to the board for approval, we have done as much negotiation as we possibly can to get the cost down for the taxpayer. And Mr. Al Burns, my senior manager of procurement, I would want him to negotiate my next house purchase. He's absolutely a public professional, and we squeeze every dollar we can out of these contracts.
I still think, though, that, so when you set up a contract, like to the first point A, do you set up KPIs or metrics that you're going to accomplish when you were using the example of the T-BARTA money and you're using it to leverage the state money, and you're going to get additional either funding or resources that you can reassign within the agency? So do you set up a contract matrix that the board could then look at as performance metrics under that contract? that you then track. I mean, one of the things that I saw at state government, let me just tell you that, and everybody comes in and says exactly what you just said. We manage them, we manage them, we manage them, we get every dollar we can get. And yet if you sort of inverse that role with a very tough procurement process, very fair and tough, but you also incent them, you can actually have cost savings to contracts. And I would just, encourage you to sort of look around to other examples of that and consider that in some of these contracts. Because otherwise, if you have a contract, they spend up to the value, and what are you, how are you measuring the success of that? And if there are cost savings elsewhere, then that should be noted, because you're getting other values beyond just the $267,000 that's really T-bar to money. And I think it goes to tell the story about both taxpayer money as well as the value of the goal, which is really to do efficiencies across 7 or 9 organizations and have, the same sort of access fee process, which makes total normal sense in everybody else's world. So in terms of the general public, so you want to get credit for what you're doing, but I think there's, I've both been on the receiving end of contract management and on the giving end of contract management, and I think there's ways to make sure as you're allotting, this is significant dollars, that there is a story around that for public discourse in terms of how you both manage money, how you're trying to work group-wise, as well as if this allows you to redirect other money to other things that are HART's priorities, that's a good story.
If I could, one of the things that, Ms. Shanahan, you have picked on something that I absolutely have been trying to deal with at city government for some time now, which is the process of RFPs and how we create them, or RFIs or whatever. Because what happens is that we do not build in what the value of the particular contract is. And you made a very concise and eloquent case in terms of what that actually means. The more you incentivize someone to do something, the better off you're going to be in the long run, because now they are actually chasing the dollars and making a smarter decision for their own business that makes better sense for us as the person that are getting their services. And it is a very tough thing to try and put together. I know that having served in state government, you understand this probably more so than anyone else in this room. And I think that our attorney will tell you that sometimes there are specific rules that we're trying to deal with too when it comes to how do you put together a fair process so that people can contract with us. But and I understood the first question. On the first one, on 2A, probably is not quite the same thing, because we're the lead dog and putting this whole thing together. So that cost is something that's nebulous right now. But totally, in terms of any other contracts that come forward, we may have to do maybe some working group at some point within the administration to say, what value are we actually trying to get out of this, so that we can try and figure out where those dollars are, and then really come up with what the real value cost is, as opposed to it just being a number. And like you said, they will spend every dime that we give them, not to exceed, and they won't exceed it. They'll go right to that level. So that's something I think we need to talk about more in the future. So. Well,
and one of the examples was when I was in California, and we had and granted it was under an emergency circumstance, but we had to rebuild, I-10, and, Pete Wilson, every bid came in and it was going to take 3 years, 4 years, whatever. And he said, there were 6 or 8 of us that were in the room with him. And I said, we need to invert this and sort of incent them and make it substantially different. And, it was repaired in 6 months. And you can do that for significant contracts. You can't do it for every contract, and I think you got to pick and choose, but I think it creates a mindset, because when I see not to exceed, I know they're going to spend $267,000. So then next year they're going to come back and say, is it another $267,000, or their expected savings that this is going to create across the organization, that this contract next year is going to be $200,000 and the $67,000 is going to be redirected. And I think if we talk about it that way, then it gets inculcated into a cultural sort of, this is how to look at the money, the value, the not to exceed, and then if there are opportunities to sort of reverse it and incent the contractor, which I would, do some research on and work with the general counsel, I think there's ways to sort of, again, get the story out.
Agreed. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Melendez?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your comments, Ms. Shannon. On that topic, I guess, of incentivizing, and hearing Jeff's story, which I think he's presented quite well, and kind of the staff's approach. In my experience in RFPs and the CCNA process, I want to give a nod to our Hillsborough County commissioners and their process. For those who may be familiar, there's an incentive where it's not a monetary incentive, but it's a scoring incentive. It's called a CAPE score. So as a consultant, you are scored by the project manager or the person that you worked with. I just want to offer this as food for thought for the future, that I really appreciate Jeff's approach, and I think that a non-monetary incentive for someone to want to pursue future business with us is a great incentive. So again, I'm not proposing it as an idea now, just food for thought, because Jeff did bring up performance. I think just as much as savings, our consultants have to perform, and that is an incentive to do so. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. We need a motion to move items 2A and B. Do I have a motion for those two? Okay, do I have a second? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, we go on to the chair's report. A couple things. One, we're not going to have a policy leadership group meeting this month. So next month's report won't include anything about that. But we do need to get our board, our officers reappointed for next month. We would like to have a nominating committee meeting on December 15th. I'd like to ask for volunteers before I start selecting people. So is there anyone that is free on December 15th? We'd like to get 3 people to head that up. And I think we're going to do, Catherine, the same process that we've done in the past, where people are asked if they want to serve on any particular boards. Am I correct about that?
And Lena will correct me, but the standard process is we do send out a request for interest to gauge who is interested in which committee assignments and which roles. Once that information comes back, it's turned over to the ad hoc committee to do their work, and then the slate will come back to the board of directors, the January meeting, which is early in the month.
Okay, terrific. So do I have any volunteers? Mr. Roche? Anyone else? We need 2 more. December 15th, and it is immediately following the FGA committee meeting. So, Mr. Bowers, you'll be out of town. I'm not going to double check on that. Hey, since he's not here, we can nominate either Miller or Bergen. Chad, go ahead.
Thank you. And I'll go back to the comments I made a year ago. It seems like an annual rite of passage that I really feel someone from our county, not county appointed, but our county commissioners that are on this board, somebody needs to be on this exec group. I guess we're calling it. See, the way I see it happening with this board is the FGA has kind of turned into the executive committee, and it really we don't have a true executive committee. We should have one that oversees the agenda and things that are coming up. I think that has happened through the FGA. I've watched this now for a couple of years, and the FGA is Finance, Governance, Administration. I mean, technically, that should just be a finance committee, and the administrative and governance issues should be done under an executive committee that oversees. I don't know if the board would be willing to make that change, but I think to be a truly functioning board that functions like all other boards with committees and different things, that we should do that. We just implemented this at Tampa Bay Water, and it's worked out very well. They had the same thing, but they really didn't have a finance committee per se, though they could call one if they needed it. So it's just a suggestion for the group. I don't know if anybody has any reaction to that. I think everybody's gotten comfortable with going to the FGA and having everything be done there. But then the true people that are on may not be on FGA. And so we walk into the board meetings and it hasn't really been, I guess, the agenda has not been reviewed by, quote, the executive committee. So it's a suggestion I have for discussion, but I do think one of the county commissioners should be on, quote, the leadership, executive, whatever you call it. I know we do have several people on the finance and governance, but I know I brought this up last year.
Right.
Steve Polzine was a county appointee, so we
right.
went ahead and left it like that. But somebody from the county should have one of the seats up there.
Well, I would suggest, and again, I don't know what it would say on our charter. I think that we can make any decision we want concerning the FGA or any other committee. I don't have a problem with that at all. I think that, like so many other boards that you all have, there's a lot of time constraints, as you know. I mean, I think we had, at one point when you first came on, there was a conflict with one of the committees that we were putting together because you had, it might have been Tampa Bay Water or maybe, probably Tampa Bay Water. So, we don't want to, we need more communication from all the other county commissioners to find out who can serve so that we can have them as part of that. So I don't have a problem with them being on there or making it as a requirement, but I think that we need to have a little bit more coordination from all the meetings that you guys have because, just like me and some of the things that I do, there are conflicts that we always have to try and deal with. I'm lucky that most of my meetings come 1, 2, 3 in a row, and then we have a council, but it doesn't happen that way with you all, I know, because you've got to deal with everyone else's schedules too. I mean, I would make a suggestion, especially since now you're the chair of county commission, to check and see which members that are part of our board here might be interested in serving as FGA members to put into to the nominating committee so we can move forward on it and we'll try and shuffle it in that direction. I think that's probably the best way of doing it, especially since we're having that discussion now, because I think that it's important that we go forward and have some idea of where the county commissioners are at that serve on this board. So
Do you, I mean, it's very easy. All you have to do is send out one of those doodle things, and you can ask each of the commissioners and the county appointees when they're available.
sure, and I think that we have our regularly scheduled FGA meetings usually mid-month typically?
It's the third Monday of the month.
Third Monday, yeah.
And we polled, I think last year we polled twice, and we do poll annually for
Sure.
the availability. And again, to your point, it becomes very challenging to line up what can go where. And unfortunately, in previous years, the Tampa Bay Water meetings have been the same day that a majority of the board members have indicated they're available.
Yeah.
So, but a broader discussion perhaps of if that's not working, do we, we're here at your pleasure, so
Yeah,
whatever
I know.
structure is necessary.
And I think that, if I recall that correctly, that was part of the issue, and there were a couple other issues too. Any other discussion, Mr. Roche?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I'm sure everybody's already seen it, but tab 3 has the list of current members and the nomination forms, which can self-nominate and nominate others. And I would highly encourage everybody to have an interest to put that in, especially now that we're nominating. And I do just want to echo some of Commissioner's comments. And actually, I think I would say that we've done a good job at having representatives from the county, from the city, so that there is kind of a good representation across the spectrum. And that would be something that I would do in the nominating committee to make sure that.
Right, that's why I think when you asked for who wanted to be on the nominating committee, I wanted to make sure that county representative was on the nominating committee.
Okay.
And just to clarify, last year, no county commissioner stepped forward to want to be chair, vice chair, or secretary. And that was one of the things that I was appointed to this position because we could not get anybody else to fill it.
A lot has changed in a year.
Just to clarify, though.
I think it's excuse me, Mr. Chair, I didn't
Go ahead.
want
No,
to be
please.
recognized. But, you know, we have provided significant funding to HART, and I think in just general viewpoint, that I want to make sure that those, that we continue to make that investment, and I think we have a duty and obligation to be at the leadership level here, or in nominating at some point with the HART Board.
Well, there's time, talent, and treasure, so I know that you've been throwing out some treasure and some time, so, and talent too. So everyone, as Mr. Vance had mentioned, that, you know, if there is someone that wants to serve, I think that they should step forward. So we have our 2 members for nominating committee. Anyone else want to volunteer before I start appointing somebody? Mr. Melendez, would you be interested in serving on the nominating committee this year? Okay. Well, you don't know yet. Oh, you said you were going to be out of town, I think you said. Okay. Why don't we do this? I will, you know, Mr. Jacobs, you're new. Would you be willing to serve, or are you going to be, you're good? Okay, great. So with Mr. Bowers, Mr. Jacobs, and Mr. Roche on the nominating committee, thank you so much for agreeing to serve. So, all right, next up is our CEO report. Ms. Egan?
Yes, thank you. We had just 2 small items. The October ridership report included a bus and van cost per actual vehicle trip. The request had been made over the summer to get the cost per passenger, and in transit we call that passenger trip, so we had some confusion in the data coming together. Just crunching the numbers, they will come out in the CEO Weekly, and also in next month's packet we'll have the October and November data. The cost per passenger trip for the agency in November was just a little bit over $4. It was around $4.18 per passenger. When we back out the fare recovery, the actual cost per trip per passenger, not covered by fare, was $2.89 each. And that's not something which we've reported previously, but we're pretty proud of that. $2.89 is a lower cost than we've seen a lot of agencies, but just wanted to share that data, make sure it was getting into the record. And again, that will come out in a table format in the CEO Weekly. And then starting next month, you'll see the October, November data. And then every month we'll have the cost per passenger trip. Excuse me. One point to clarify. When we say passenger trip, we count passengers the same way intersections count cars. An intersection does not know if I forgot my lunch and had to go back home and get the stuffed monkey that the 2-year-old needs, etc. The intersection just knows it's a car. We track exactly the same way. So when we say that we had a day in October with over 60,000 passenger trips, that's folks breaking the front door, getting on the bus. That is still more people on buses than cars on Bruce B. Downs. Every time I'm stuck on Bruce B. Downs, I find that to be a pretty interesting comparison. So just this is how we track them in the industry. So when we say passengers, we don't mean that we know Kevin Beckner got on the bus and got off later. We don't track like that, but we say individual trips getting on the bus, and we'll be sharing that data. Second item we had was just a quick follow-up. In the previous meeting, we had been discussing partnerships with Sunshine Line. We are meeting with Scott Clark, the director of Sunshine Line, on December 4th, which is my parents' 49th wedding anniversary. I was almost in trouble. 49th. So we're meeting with Scott for an official meeting. We've had some informal meetings. And previously, Ruthie and staff did want to stress, we have worked informally with Sunshine Line, though we will move this into something more formal and reportable. A good example was 2 years ago when the county was redoing their budget and cutting the ad valorem going to Sunshine Line. It simply had to go other places. Sunshine Line migrated over 9 dialysis centers, which were within the city of Tampa or the incorporated area of the county, which we serve, unincorporated area we serve. And we did a handoff, a 6-month transition. So instead of us getting hundreds of passengers dumped on us at one time, we're able to partner in bundling the trips together and being more cost effective and getting the county to where they could focus Sunshine Line where they wanted it. It was also a little more a more amenable transition for us. We work very often when we get reports or people say, hey, there's 2 vans going to the same place. We use different scheduling software, so it's a little more challenging to sit down and review the trips, but we have our staff working on that, and we'll be formalizing that into our working group that goes forward. We also have Sunshine Line representation on our ADA board, and we do a lot of collaborative projects with them. And Sunshine Line is up to speed, so to speak, not to make a bad transit pun, on what we're doing with the website and our other outreach areas that work with their constituent groups. So we do work closely with them informally, but we will be working to formalize that, so we have something a little more concrete, and instead of saying, hey, we met, we can say, we met, we documented the goal, and here's how we're achieving that and bringing back better transportation for the county. And that is all I have in my CEO report. And since this is the last meeting, official meeting of the year, happy holidays, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you. Any questions for the CEO? Thank you. Mr. Smith, our general counsel's report.
Yes, good morning. By way of refreshing your recollection for those of you who were here and informing the new board members, the policy that we're first speaking of is in section 120.02. This deals with the process by which the city and the county or any other appointive body fills a vacancy when a vacancy occurs. The statute prescribes timeframes in a process. However, it doesn't prescribe notice requirements and other specifics that caused some confusion when we had a recent board member resign. We didn't want to trigger the time periods that under the statute results in the forfeiture of, for example, the Hillsborough County's ability to appoint a successor. So what we've done is we've added to the policy a specific set of requirements that notice must be provided to the governing body and that timeframes to act will date from those notices, so there's a due process provided to the body. I would also advise you that because this policy addresses an issue that is partly described and prescribed by the statute, we need to go through a rulemaking process because we are going to be providing specificity that is not currently in the statute or does not exist otherwise by rule. So you can approve this in the same fashion as the other two, but I just want you to know there will be a different process. This will not come back to you as quickly. What we will do is we will notify the county and the city. I suspect they will not request a public hearing. I think the changes that you have made protect their rights and provide a clear process. But nonetheless, we must provide them a notice and have a 21-day period, et cetera, to implicate and start a rulemaking hearing if they want to. I would recommend we do not request one at the outset because I really don't think it's necessary. The public at large is not generally affected by this. This is pertaining to the appointive bodies and their rights. So I would recommend we provide the notice that we must provide, and if either the county or the city do not request a hearing, it will come back to you probably in the February timeframe, possibly January, but I don't think so. So that would be number A.
So do we need a motion to move item A forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I have a motion to move the process forward on the organizational language concerning appointment of board members? Any questions or comments? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No? Thank you, Mr. Smith. Go ahead.
Okay, I believe we've already approved the transparency requirement. Is that right? Did we approve that when Jeff gave his presentation? Okay. The second one, Part B, is a policy that does not implicate the hearing process, is not a rulemaking process. It is just simply an adoption and clarification of environmental policy to enhance the environmental efficacy of HART as an organization and the sorts of things they do. It's in your backup if you have any questions. I think Jeff actually created this policy or crafted it, so we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Otherwise, we need a motion to approve.
All right. Any questions, comments? Need a motion? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr.
Okay, the
Smith.
last item on my report is the draft Chief Executive Officer's Employment Agreement. I've been working with the chairman on this. We've been gathering information with respect to salaries and compensation packages to try to provide the board a summary of the background and some comparables in order to evaluate the critical or business terms of that contract. The form of the contract, we currently have an interim CEO contract. We will follow that pretty much again for the CEO contract. The only question I have about that, and I haven't had a chance to mention this to Ms. Egan, is whether or not we will retain that provision that preserves her fallback position. But since now she's the permanent CEO and this will be a longer-term contract, perhaps we can dispense with that provision. It doesn't matter to us either way, I think. But anyway, we expect to have a contract for you at the next board meeting. We will have it to you in advance, and if you have any questions, you can certainly contact me about that. But right now, we have no action to take at this time.
And just as a point of information, I have reached out to the American Public Transit Association to find out any surveys or studies that they've done for CEO salaries across the country in terms of where we're at, so that we understand what we're negotiating, so that we fall somewhere where a reasonable group would fall concerning the years of experience and the performance that Ms. Egan has had over the past few years. So they have not responded to me in terms of a new survey. I'm going to find out what their last survey was. It may be old, but at the very least, we'll get some information concerning that too. And we'll make sure we get that out to all the board members before we make any decisions. Okay. Anything else?
I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions of Mr. Smith on his report? Okay. All right, everything else is in our backup material, all of the other reports. I have one piece of new business. I don't see any folks from the public that want to speak. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on any issue before this board? I see no one. I wanted to read into the record a letter from Mr. Bergen. He could not make it today, and it concerns what we were going to discuss on item under new business, which is the outcomes of referenda throughout the state. I'm going to read to you his letter on what he had to say about it. Please accept my apologies for being absent and record this correspondence for the record. There is a conflict in my schedule that I simply cannot avoid. In my absence, I'd like to request that my agenda item to discuss the failure of the tax referenda at the November 4th, 2014 ballot be pulled from the agenda, resubmitted for next month's meeting. In anticipation of that conversation, I would like to highlight some things I've noted over the past weeks. Election night 2014 sent a strong signal about the voters' reluctance to approve 1-cent sales tax increase proposals in Central Florida. Although each plan was specific to its community, the tax proposals in Pinellas, Polk, Alachua, and Hernando counties were all defeated by wide margins. Hillsborough County leaders cannot ignore the implications of these outcomes. Immediately following election night's tax proposal defeats, some local leaders publicly denied that these neighboring county election outcomes had any bearing on the viability of 1-cent proposal for Hillsborough in 2016. The hackneyed claims that the Hillsborough proposal for 2016 would be different from Pinellas' plan were reminiscent of prior claims that the Pinellas plan was to be different than Hillsborough's in 2010. But in the end, both the Hillsborough 2010 and Pinellas 2014 plans were opposed by approximately 60% of the voters. In addition to these fairly obvious takeaways, I was reminded of the post-referendum analysis conducted by the MPO following the 2010 ballot in Hillsborough. And I would like to draw your attention to some of what we learned from that research. In the 2035 Plan Post-Referendum Analysis, Phase 3, page 9, which is attached, we can see a clear set of community transportation priorities. Further, this summarized page allowed us to easily see a large intensity gap between the priority to maintain streets, roads, bridges, and highways and every other type. Notice there is a 19% difference between the MSRBH, which is maintain streets, roads, bridges, and highways, and turn lanes and traffic signal improvements, and a 27% difference between the roads and streets and expand local bus system. The net high and net low columns from the page help establish the order of priorities, but we can't ignore the intensity differences. I would also point out that the community's preference for streets, roads, and bridges is consistent with the post-referendum research conducted by the Tampa Bay Partnership in Pinellas a few weeks ago. And he also has an attachment from the Tampa Bay Business Journal. It is also impossible to ignore the feedback, the question of a half-cent versus 1-cent sales tax increases. Here again, the research is clear that a 1-cent sales tax starts with 58% of the voters in opposition. This number is consistent with the 2010 Hillsborough referendum outcome. Thus, it is obvious, should the leadership of this community insist on another 1-cent ballot item in 2016, there would again be met With defeat, a 1/2 cent proposal starts off with at least some chance of acceptance by the voters. On this point, allow me to be clear. My record of opposition to increased taxes is unequivocal, and I do not support increasing our taxes, but those who do should be rational in their approach to crafting community solutions. The Pinellas Polk election results and previous MPO research have direct implications for HART County and city leadership. 1, HART should remain vigilant over every dollar that comes to the agency. HART has a solid track record, but we must continue to watch carefully over every dollar. 2, HART should not expect to see dramatic budgetary growth as a result of a near future tax increase proposal. The public is very unlikely to support a 1 cent sales tax increase and equally unlikely to support a 1/2 cent where a majority share goes to transit. 3, the most likely scenario for increased HART funding through additional taxes is one where a 1/2 cent tax is passed with a majority of the revenues committed to roads and a relative small amount is dedicated to HART. I am deeply committed to the success of this agency and the residents of this county, and as community leaders, we must address the situation we find ourselves in head on, rather than pretending the environment is somehow different. I look forward to our continued work together at next month's meeting and in 2015. Have a very Merry Christmas and a safe and happy New Year, Josh Bergen. I have this copy that if we can send this out to all of the board members for their own edification. I also did have something from the American Public Transportation Association that talked about overwhelming support from voters at the ballot box. More than 70% of measures passed in 2014 concerning transit. There are some numbers for that too. We'll be glad to send that to on. I won't read it, but there is some information about how other ballot initiatives had gone forward. Ms. Merman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any comments on the letter, except, thank you. Except, and it goes back to my comments earlier about true executive committee. I would really like to see the finance committee be just a finance committee that looks, remember I have proposed in the past to have groups look at how we can, looking at our revenue sources, looking at, potential funding for the future so that they can really have time to dig into the finances, how we are going to move HART forward. And I think it's really clear to me that we have to spend time next year trying to find out how we're going to get more money to get more buses, to get more services out to people. That's what they want. The message is clear to me. And I think it's time for us for the Finance Committee to truly act like a Finance Committee and delve into those issues and get that done. And that's really I guess, I probably should have said that earlier, but that's bringing up that comment from the letter hit stronger to me that this is time for us. I've asked for committees previously over the last 4 years. I've been on HART to study ways and have workshops on bonding, finances, going through line items, whatever it takes. But we've got to devote the time to do it. And we can't be bogged down with other administrative and governance issues when that is the primary, that's going to be our mission and goal for the next 2 years for HART, quite frankly. It's going to be, how are we going to move this agency forward? Because remember my Armageddon statement a couple of years ago. We're going to have a real situation here if we don't figure this out soon. So that is what I want to do. And I guess I'd even make a motion to restructure our committees. Maybe it's not time yet. Maybe we need to bring this up at the next board meeting when people have had time to think about it.
Why don't we go ahead and discuss it at the next board meeting?
Okay.
I don't have a problem putting that
Bring
out
it
as
up,
agenda. Sure.
new
Yeah,
business.
we'll put it on there.
I think it's time.
Okay.
We've got to do this now.
Okay. Any other questions or comments before we adjourn? I see none. We are now currently adjourned. Thank you.